Happy New Year and welcome to the new and hopefully refreshed CBW Personal Finance Podcast with me, Lewis O'Sullivan, and my new co-host, Jason Timber.
Hello. Going forward, we would like to use this podcast not just to explain how CBW financial planning can help you plan your finances, but also to provide an education about finance in the real world.
Yeah, so ideally we're covering the stuff that they don't really teach in school. But first, as it's a new year, we'll be discussing new starts and New Year's resolutions when it comes to finance. But first, a good news story.
So, our good news story this month is that we are in our new home. We have successfully moved offices and are now broadcasting from 10 Lower Thames Street. We thought we would call in our Managing Director, Chris, to tell us about our new office.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. Yeah, here we are in the our new building in the Northern Shell building, which is in Lower Thames Street, as you said. It's a fantastic location. I think we're close to a lot of mainline stations now, a bit more into the city, but also we've got a fantastic riverside view and our own terrace. So come the summer, we'd love to see a lot of people coming in, dropping in for a cup of coffee and a chat.
So as well as the good news story section of the podcast, we're also going to have one to do with a topic. So as we're talking about new starts, we're going to talk about new starts, and that's things like you're starting your new job, how to deal with your first pay packet, and also talking about resetting and building financial resilience in times of high inflation and rising interest rates. So Jason, what was your first job?
I'm not sure if it counts as a job, but my dad owned a dress factory, and he used to bring some of the work home. So what I mean by that is, you know, the buttons which come with a dress, the spare buttons in the bag.
Yep.
Well, there is an 8-year-old at home somewhere that has to put these buttons in the bag. And that was my first job, if you'd call it a job. My dad kind of turned it into a game, but yeah, definitely a different kind of homework than the usual maths that you get from school. So that was kind of my first job. Post that, I worked in Asda for the beer money, fruit and vegetable within Asda, so a lot of heavy lifting, potatoes, bananas.
What paid better, your dad's job or Asda?
It was Asda.
Was it? Yeah.
So I did actually get a pay increase from 0 to something.
Okay, that's good.
How about you, Lewis? What was your first job?
So my first job was actually after my first year at uni. I was a waiter in the summer and a barman, but unfortunately we didn't get to make any cocktails. They weren't on the menu, so probably not an official barman. I'm closer to a waiter than I am a barman, but there we go.
Tax return for your tips?
Well, lucky for me, a lot of the tips were actually paid by card, so they'd actually be added to my payslip at the end of the month and taxed in the same way my sort of hourly rate was. So, but of course, if I did earn cash tips, I would have definitely put them all on my tax return, because that's the right thing to do.
Of course. That leads nicely into what you actually get at the end of the month for your hard work, which is a payslip. Can you talk us through a payslip, Lewis, and what goes on it, what you should be looking out for?
Yeah, of course. So obviously, might be obvious, might not be, but a payslip basically summarises your pay for the end of the month. And so what you should see is obviously top left, probably your name. Under that, you might have national insurance, followed by your tax code, how you're paid. That will typically be BACS, which is a payment clearing system essentially, and the date. So all of this stuff, it might not be in that order, but it should be on your payslip somewhere. And this is all relevant because, more so the tax code, because that shows you, or tells you, should I say, the personal allowance that HMRC have for you. After that, you've then got something along the lines of salary, which will show you for this period. So whatever period that may be, is typically a month. But also next to it, you've got for the year so far, and that will just show you the income you've earned so far that year. Under that, you've got your pension contributions. Again, similar with the salary, it will show you for this particular period. So the reason why you've got pension contributions on there is due to something called auto-enrolment. So Jason, can you tell us a little bit about the auto-enrolment rules?
Yeah, sure. So auto-enrolment is when you are put into the workplace pension scheme for your employer, So for employers, it's compulsory to offer pension schemes to their staff, or more often than not, it's compulsory. And the auto enrolment rules, so the eligibility of joining the scheme, you have to be between age 22 and state pension age, and earn at least £10,000 per annum, and you have to be classed as a worker as well, so actually employed by the company. And then the way it works is you pay into your pension, and also your employer pays into your pension, and you get some tax relief on top. So your government and your employer will pay into the pension, which usually you can see that on the pay slip.
So now on to the much less exciting bit, especially if it's your first pay slip. At the bottom there, you'll see tax and national insurance. Jason, would you like to tell us a little bit more about the national insurance contributions, please?
So national insurance is essentially another tax. The key difference is you're actually you hopefully benefit from the tax by way of contributing towards your own state pension. So making national insurance contributions through your payslip, you should be buying an extra year if you work for a year towards your state pension when the time comes. But it's essentially another tax that you have to pay.
There can be other employee benefits on there as well, so keep an eye out for those. There'll be things like cycle to work scheme, private healthcare, and death in service.
So Lewis, you mentioned financial resilience towards the start of the podcast. Can you elaborate on this a little bit, please?
Yeah, of course. So essentially what I mean is just to protect yourself. Now that doesn't necessarily mean protection. It just means making sure that you're in the right position to deal with anything that happens. Obviously high inflation, increasing interest rates still being very topical. So first point of call is to look at any debt. And you need to prioritise the most costly debt, prioritise repayment, that is, because again, rising interest rates, those are going to cost you more. You pay those down, frees up more of your income to go towards your objectives, whatever they may be. Brings us nicely into the next point, which is not necessarily step one, step two, it's something you should do at the same time, but it's also budget analysis. So looking at your income and looking at your expenditure. So how much have you got coming in? How much have you got coming out? And with your expenditure, how much of that is essential, i.e. your rent, mortgage, food bills, and then how much of it is discretionary? So unfortunately, going down the pub or your entertainment subscriptions. Once you're in a position where you're aware of your cash flow, you can then have a really good understanding of: do you need to prioritise repaying debt? Do you need to allocate some of your monthly budget to saving? Is it worth doing both at the same time? And then beyond that, it's protection needs. So it's almost at each stage you're strengthening each position. So for example, if you end up with a protection policy, let's say income protection, for example, and you're unable to work, that is going to provide you with a portion of your income that you can continue to repay your debt. You can continue to save if that's what you're doing, and it doesn't negatively affect you, for example, taking more debt on, which unfortunately is unavoidable at times, unless you build financial resilience.
Thank you for that, Lewis. That's all from us today, folks. Usually we would be going into a client question section, tongue twister there. So if you do have any questions that you'd like to ask Lewis or myself, then please write in the channels below. But that's all from us. So Happy New Year. We wish you the best of your day or evening or morning, whatever time you're listening to us.
Yeah, Happy New Year, and just thank you for listening today. If you found our podcast helpful, please refer a friend, colleague, parent, child or neighbour to listen. It's available on our website, or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel where we provide the podcast with subtitles, or you can even find it on Spotify. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.